subscribe to our YouTube channel, Joy Learning TV.
Hello. Welcome to Senior High School R here on Joy Learning Channel. I'm always super excited when I come here. We started looking at the non-African poetry after we took time to look at all the African poetry. So we are looking at Do Not Go Gently, able to identify the number of stanzas. And what are we doing today? Let's look at our objective quickly. So by the end of today's lesson, we should be do not go gently into that good night. If we are coming to do not go gently, then we are answering a serious question on it. And so we should be able to appreciate it. That is one. Two, we should be able to identify the mood and tone and poetic devices used in the poem Do Not Go Gently into That Good Night. And then we should also be able to discuss the speaker's attitude towards death. And so after looking at all these things that I've mentioned today, we will boldly hit our chest and say that I am done studying. Do not go gently into that good night. Let's begin. And so in our previous lesson, we also looked at the writer of the poem, and we saw Dylan Thomas as the writer who died in 1953. I also, as always as I do, I also showed you a photo of Dylan that I got from the internet. So this picture was captured by the BBC. We also got to know that because of the impact that his words brought, he's got a statue in his homeland. We also got to know that Dylan was one of the best-known poets of the 20th century. Now, to our poem, Do Not Go Gently into That Good Night by Dylan Thomas. Do not go gently into that good night. Old age shall burn and rave at close of day. Rage against the dying of light. Though wise men at their end know that is right, because their words had forked no lightning, they do not go gently into that good night. Good men, the last wave by, crying how bright their frail deeds might have danced in a green bay. Rage against the dying of the light. Wild men who caught and sang the sun in flight and learned too late, they graved it on its way. Do not go gently into that good night. Grave men near death who sees with blinding sight, blind eyes could blaze like matches and be gay. Rage against the dying of the light. And you, my Father, there on the sad height, curse, bless me now with your fierce tears. I pray, do not go gentle into that good night. Rage against the dying of the light. And so this is the poem that we looked at in our previous lesson. Now, what is the poem actually about? Before we actually analyze and look at the mood of the poet, the tone, the poetic devices, what is the summary? What is it really about? And so Dylan Thomas' poem, Do Not Go Gently into That Good Night, is about a son's plea to his ailing father not to give up life to death, although death is inevitable. And so, if we see the word ailing, then we are looking at somebody who is weak, somebody who is frail, somebody who is sick, okay? And so, this is a son's plea, a son begging the father, Daddy, don't go gently into that good night. And what is that good night? We are going to really analyze the poem today, and so we will know what the good night really is. Now, he provides the father examples. So the poet, the persona, provides the father examples of men who have fought death strongly with all there is in them before giving up. And so in the poem, I'm sure you encountered grave men, wise men. You saw all that. Those were the examples that the poet was citing to his father for him not to go gently into that good night. Now he requests him to fight even in his last moments so that he can depart from this life with dignity rather than disgrace. And so this is a summary with all the 6 stanza lines that we've looked at. We get to understand that the poem is about who? A son pleading with the father not to die. And so we will see the symbolic role of the word night that has been used in the poem. We saw the structure of the poem. We saw that the poem, Do Not Go Gently Into That Good Night, is a 6 stanza poem. And the type of 6 stanza poem that we are looking at in Do Not Go Gently is a villanelle. Don't forget that. Always remember that the poem is a villanelle type of poem divided into 5 tercets. And if we say tercets, we are talking about a poem with 3 lines per stanza. And so if you are looking at a poem with just 3 lines in the stanza, then that is a tercet. And then a quatrain is a poem with how many lines? 4 lines. We also saw the rhyming scheme of a villanelle poem as ABA. So all the 4 stanzas taking ABA, ABA, and then the quatrain, the final stanza, taking AB, AA, AB, AA. We also saw the end stop lines, and so we are going to actually come and capture the end stop lines, and so I'm skipping it now. Let's go on. What did I teach you about end stop lines? So I made mention of the run-on lines and the end stop lines. So as the word suggests, end stop. The lines that when you read a sentence, it makes complete sense. It gives you a main idea. It gives you all the ideas that you need, but it doesn't move to the next line. The moment it moves to the next line, then we call it the run-on. And so the lines are running on. But if it stops there, we call it the end stop lines. And another name for the end stop lines is what we term as enjambment. What did I say? Enjambment. And then the rhythm is the sound of movement produced in each line. What is the rhythm in this poem? And so we are done with reviewing what we learned in our previous lesson. We've looked at the structure of the poem. We've looked at all the end stop lines. Now we are going to pick stanza by stanza to analyze and really talk about the main issues that are in there. Stay tuned and let's roll on. Now we've come to stanza 1. Stanza 1. If you look at the stanza 1 of the poem, Do Not Go Gently Into That Good Night, we see it as an introductory, a form of introduction, and the poet starts on a strong note, like a warning, like sending a message. Do not. If you're telling somebody, do not go gently to that good night, it's like a command. And so the first stanza serves as an introduction note on not giving into death so easily, even at old age. Let me take you back quickly to the first stanza of the poem. Okay, are you there with me? Right? And so there we go. Do not go gently into that good night. Old age shall burn and rave at close of day. Rage against the dying of the light. And so the first stanza, the moment somebody tells you, do not come here, it's like a command. We see the poet command the father, do not, don't go into that good night. And the good night here that we are talking about, we are going to look at, I've mentioned that we will see the significant effects, how symbolically the night represents in this poem. Okay, now in line 1, we see a representation of the expression, that's good night. Now, good night comes into play after you've gone through all your activities for the day and then you're going to rest. But that good night here represents death, the eternal rest, not just the normal rest that we know. Now, night here, as I mentioned, marks the end of day, and it symbolizes the end of life, which is death. And so the poet commands the other, I know night is there, all right, but don't go into woods. Now let's see how he commands his father again in the stanza 2. Now the speaker directs death to a specific group of people. So it is not nowadays that we see young people dying. In the olden days, as we can see, this poem was written in the 1918s, right? It's a long time ago. And those days, although the poet died early himself, he died at the age of 30, we get to understand that in those days, before somebody would die, the person is old. Okay? And so the poet starts, old age. So you see the things of old age in there. Let me quickly take you to stanza 2 of the poem. Wise men, at their end, no dark is right, because their words had fogged no lightning. They do not go gently into the good night. And so even in those days, people will be 100 years, 80 years, 110, but then they still don't want to die. You still them strong, trying to eat all the good food, trying to exercise. And so the poet makes reference to the father. Look at these people. They are old. We all know they are old, but still, they are not going gentle. Why should you go gentle into that good night? Now, the use of wise men, and so take note of this word as used in the poem. The use of wise men refers to highly learned and knowledgeable men who are influencers. Now, he hits on them to not go gently into that good night, because they are going with what? All the knowledge that they've got within them, all the wisdom, all the books they've read. And so he says what? Do not go gently into that good night, because they will go to the grave with all their ideas. Now we are done with stanza 1, done with stanza 2. Let's come and have a look at stanza 3. Now, with the stanza 3, the persona, and when we're looking at all the elements of poetry, don't forget that I mentioned the persona is that voice that you hear, that person speaking in the poem. And so the persona holds firm to his words again of persuasion, because that is what we see in the first stanza. Do not. So the persona holds firm to his words of persuasion of not going gently into that good night. And that good night is death. The use of good men. And so in stanza 3, stanza 2, we see the use of wise men. Then he comes to good men. The use of good men refers to generous, charitable, morally upright men who, no matter what, will be taken away. Are you following? And so in chapter 2, the father, after he's persuaded the writer, after he's persuaded the father, do not go, do not die. Now he's come to make reference. Wise men, they go all right, but they go with dignity. Then he comes down again. Good men, they also go, but they go with dignity. Let's see his words in stanza 4. Wild men. We have seen wise men, we've seen good men, now we are seeing wise men. Wise men who caught and sang the sun in flight and learned too late. They grieved it on its way. Do not go gently into that good night. Here we see the persona or the poet making reference to wise men. And if we want to make reference to wise men, the people who think they know it all, who think that, oh, I've arrived, I've got this, I've got that. And so they chase after all the riches, they chase after all the good things. After they've chased all of them, then look at the next line in stanza 4. And learn too late. And so after they've seen themselves as so wise, eventually they learn too late that what? All the things that I'm grieving for, all the things that I'm fighting for is of no importance. And so, and learn too late, they grieved it on its way. And there again, he hammered. Now that you know about the wise men, you still don't have to go gently into that good night. So the persona pictures wild men as the life owners, as I mentioned earlier, who attains all they desire, but realizes too late at the turn of events. Now we are picking chapter 5, stanza 5. Stanza 5, he makes mention of another class of people. And here he mentions grave men. So the grave men here is not as if men who are dead and they've been put in the grave. But if we say that somebody is grave, it means the person is deep. Okay? The person has got a lot of ideas. The person is seriously minded. And so the expression grave men symbolizes serious-minded men who dedicate their lives thinking critically and coming out with findings. And so if you hear somebody make reference to you as, hey, this student is very grave, it means the student is in depth, the student has got a lot of ideas, the student is a researcher. And so the poet refers the father. Grave men, near death, who sees with blinding sight, blind eyes, cold blaze like meteors, and be gay. In our previous lesson, we tried to look at the meanings of all the words that are in this poem. And so I don't think you are going to tell me, and all these words, what does it mean? Good job. He still tells the father, rage against the dying of the light. And so when the light dies, when we get to looking at the poetic device, there is a device that comes into play. dying of the light. How can a light die? The light has been given the attributes of something that we will talk about as we go on. Now let's come to the last stanza, stanza 6. And you, my Father, there on the sad heights, curse, bless me now with your fierce tears. I pray, do not go gently into that good night. Rage against the dying of the light. And so we see that the persona still makes reference to the dying of the light. That Father, that I see the end of the tunnel near. I see the light is getting dimmer. I see that you are struggling. But in the midst of all that, don't go. Don't just give in to death. And so the persona makes a direct address to his dying father, as has been captured here. The previous stanzas, you see him talking about others. The persona makes mention of grave men, made mention of wise men, made mention of what other men? Okay, and so we saw grave men, we saw wise men, we saw good men. And now we are seeing the persona directing it at the Father. Do not go. Do not go gently, my Father, there on the sad height. Now we are going to see what the sad height actually stands for. The sad height here refers to shattered dreams and an unstable emotion. In stanza 6, we see a direct address. So all along, the persona, the poet was addressing other people, making reference to the Father, that Daddy, look at these people, wise men, old men, good men. They all die. They all do not go gently. They all realize later that, okay, death is inevitable. But then, rage, don't die. Now, when we come to stanza 6, this time, he addresses the Father directly. And you, my Father, there on the sad height, curse, bless me now with your fierce tears, I pray. Do not go gently into that good night. Rage against the dying of the light. Now the persona makes a direct address to his dying father and refers the emotions to that of a sad height. How can a height be sad? And so when we talk about a height that is sad, there is another device there. Once we are done analyzing the stanzas, we will come to all the poetic devices that came into play in this poem. Sad height here refers to a shattered dreams and an unstable emotion. Now we are done looking at the stanzas. Look at some themes too that have been captured. After taking time to look at stanza 1, stanza 2, 3, 4, 5. Have you seen any theme? Note it down. As I bring back the themes that I got from this poem. Don't forget that we said theme is the central idea or the main idea that can be found in a literary work. And so what is the central idea in this poem? Have you written them down? Good job. So we'll take a closer look at these themes and note down what you think about it. Well done. Did you encounter any of these themes with your writing? You did. I'm excited. Great. Okay. And so I saw the theme of death. I also saw a plea to live. Another theme that runs through the poem is the briefness of life. With reference to wise men, old men, good men, and the father of the poets, you see that death will come. That good night will come. And so life is short. We also see protest against death. Protest against death. Now, we are going to pick one of these poems, these themes, and then deal with it. And so let's identify. I want us to look at death, black, okay. Dark lights. Okay. And so let's look at protest against death. Where do we see protest against death? Write something down. Try your hands on this theme. And make reference to some lines that points to the fact that the poet was protesting against death. Okay. Good job. Now let's see. Now, protest against death can be seen with the use of the persona's words. So the protest was to the persona's dying father, who has approached a sad height. And a sad height I mentioned earlier, the point where you feel that everything is lost. Broken emotions. It is time to vanish. So the persona employs persuasive presentation of his protest and urges his father, though old, not to go gently into that good night. And so you can make reference to line 1, where the persona commands the father, do not go gently into that good night. He's pleading. Then he comes, rage, rage, fight against it. Don't let that just take you away. And so he was protesting. With the protest, he makes reference to people. And so that is the theme of protesting against death. Now, considering the breakdown of the poem, what do you think is the mood and tone of the persona? What do you think is the mood and tone of the persona? Now, in our previous lesson, I will always make reference to our previous lesson. And so, if you didn't take part in the previous lesson, we learned that the mood is a general state of emotion created and felt on reading a literary piece. The general state of emotion created and felt on reading a literary piece. And so the emotion can be that of anger, can be that of joy, can be that of fear, and can be that of sadness. What do you think is the mood of the poet here? Let's see. Now, one could actually perceive that the persona's mood as that of expectation. He was expecting the father not to die. We can also see that he expected old age to prevail against death to the end. We also see that he expected the father to wrestle, although the night was near. And so the mood was that of expectation, cuddled with sadness, cuddled with anger. And so he was expecting, don't die, do not go. But in the midst of the expectation, he was angry. In the midst of the expectation, we saw him pointing people to the Father, that look. All these people fought against death. Why can't you also do that? And so that is the mood. We see the mood of expectation. And in the expectation, we see anger. We see fear. The fear of the father dying. And so, talk about the mood of the poets. You make reference to all these things that have been discussed. Well done. Now let's see the tone. We also learned that the tone is as to whether it is harsh. How does the persona, the voice in the poem, how does the persona present the lines? That is the tone. And so the tone of the line seems to be commanding. Do you agree with me? Of course. With the use of the words in the poem, we see command. And so the tone is that of command, at the beginning especially. But getting to the latter parts, you saw that he was telling the father, do not go gently into that good night. Old age shall burn and rave at close of day. That was a command. Old age. I know old age is inevitable, but it should burn. How can old age burn? And rave at close of day. Now that we are done with the mood and the tone, let's come to the poetic devices. Let's come to the poetic devices. And so note down some of the poetic devices that you encountered when we were reading the poem. And then also the analysis of the stanzas. What devices did you encounter? The first one that is dominant is personification. Personification is what? Personification. And what does it mean when we say personification? Personification is giving human attributes to non-human entities. Personification is giving human attributes to non-human entities. And so let's see. Old age shall burn and rave at close of day. Old age. How can old age burn? And so we see comparison here, given human attributes. There was another personification that we saw in the poem, dying of the light. Dying of the light. How can a light die? Human beings die, right? And so dying of the light. There was another personification. Let's go to the poem and see. Okay. Great. Now we are back to the main poem. And so, where are the personifications? We see dying of the light. The human attribute has been given to the light. Let's move to the next stanza and see. Okay. So the dying of the light actually runs through. Wild men who caught and sang the sun in flight, and learned too late, they graved it on its way. Do you see another personification? No, you don't. Okay. Okay, so there's another personification here. Don't forget, giving human attributes to non-human entities. And you, my father, there on the sad heights, It's human beings who become sad. But the moment you give the attribute of a human being, like you say, happy rain, how can the rain be happy? Sad height, how can a height be sad? Okay? Trees dancing, how can the tree dance? Once you give the attribute of human beings, it's human beings who perform these functions, right? Once you give it to the non-human entities, then personification come into play. And so sad height here also denotes personification. Okay, let's go on to another device. Now we are looking at the poetic devices. Simile. Simile. What is simile? So simile is comparison between two dissimilar things with the use of as or like. As or like. And so we can say that she is like the sun. Okay, I'm comparing to the similar things. Sun here, she here, with a use of like in the middle. Okay, she is like the sun. And so the use of like, comparing, always remember that anytime we talk about a simile, there is comparison. And so in the poem we see blind eyes could blaze like meteors and be gay. How can a blind eye blaze like a meteors and be gay? The eyes that cannot see, how can it blaze? How can it shine? How can it bend? And so we see comparison between two the similar things. Now, if we go back to the poem, is there another comparison there? Is there another simile? Okay. Look, let's look together. Let's start from stanza 1. Did you come across any? Okay. Now stanza 2, take your time. Look at it. Okay. There is none again. Okay, so that is a simile there. Let's see another poetic device. If you've noted any poetic device, write it down and share with us. We also see alliteration. And what is alliteration? I'm sure you've been introduced to it already. In second year, these devices, you know them, so we are only applying to the things we are reading. Now, we learned that alliteration is the repetition of consonant sounds. The repetition of what? Consonant sounds in close succession. While assonance, while what? Assonance is a repetition of, if we know consonant, then this will be what? Well done. The repetition of vowel sounds. And so we see S, which is a consonant, and S. S. They are in close succession, and so we get alliteration. There are other examples to look at, and so my beautiful learners, handsome learners, take your time and fish out all the other devices that I don't mention today. Now, there's a lot of symbolism in this poem. The poets made use of a lot of symbolism. And so light, we saw light. And what is light? We see light as a symbol of life. Light is a symbol of life. And so in line 3, the speaker instructs the reader and his or her own father to rage against the dying of the light. The father to rage against the dying of the light. So the light represents a reason to live. The light represents a reason to live, and so we have symbolism there. Now, light appears in a lot of lines, and so in line 3, we see the use of light there. Line 9, there was a use of light there. Line 15, light comes there again. Line 19. And so take your time and look at all these things that I'm talking about, and you see how the writer, the poet, desperately wanted the father not to go into the night, but rather rage against the dying of the light. Now we also see in line 5, lightning. Lightning symbolizes inspiration, a flash of insight that could change the world. And so basically, I want us to picture lightning when it's about to rain, okay? Most times, the moment you see the lightning, the thunder striking light, then it means that, okay, the rains are coming. And so lightning here symbolizes what? Inspiration. And here, a flash of insight that could change the world, at least one's own life. Now, in line 4 and 5, we see the use of the words wise men. We also saw fogged. So, all being compared to the lightning, words had fogged no lightning. And here, the lightning symbolizes a reason to live in the face of death. Another symbolism that can also be seen in this poem is the green bay. The green bay. Now, good men, in line 7 and 8, we saw the use of the green bay. Good men, the last wave by, crying how bright their frail deeds might have danced in a green bay. And you know, green also symbolizes freshness, right? And so the green bay is like a tranquil place. If we say tranquil, what does it mean? Peace. Well done. And so tranquil place, a place without anxiety or despair for those who have achieved something. Let's quickly look at other devices as I leave you to go and fish out for more. And so, today has been an amazing day again. We are done looking at Do Not Go Gently Into That Good Night. My learners, we are going to do the same thing that we've applied to this poem. We are going to do that to all the other poems, all the non-African poetry. This evening, when you're about to go to bed, grab your book again. Open to Do Not Go Gently Into That Good Night. Try and refresh your memory on all the things that we've done. How we were able to come up with the meanings of all the unfamiliar words that came into play in the poem. How we've been able to analyze stanza by stanza. How we've been able to identify the mood and tone. We said the mood and tone of this poem is that the tone is that of command. And we said the mood is that of expectation. And so the poet was expecting the father to leave. Hence, we see the tone of command, commanding the father not to go gently into that good night. We also identify several themes. We saw the theme of a plea to leave. We saw the theme of death. We saw the theme of briefness of life. And we also saw the theme of fighting against death. We've also looked at some basic poetic devices. We identified personification. We saw simile. We saw symbolism. There was another device that I saw which I didn't mention. Did you notice that? Good. Oxymoron. I didn't mention, but I expect you to also go and look out for more devices. Let me quickly take you for us to look at the oxymoron before I end my lesson. Go to the last stanza of the poem. And you, my father, there on the sad heights, curse, bless. The use of curse and bless. And so we saw that when we are looking at simile, simile is comparison between two dissimilar things or ideas with the use of like or as. But when we come to oxymoron, it is the comparison, direct comparison, just position of two opposite words. Two opposite words. And so we are looking at black and white. We are looking at bittersweet. And so you say that the story was bittersweet. Painful laughter. Her laughter was a painful one. How can the laughter be painful? There should be joy in the laughter. And so anytime you see the comparison or the use of two opposite words, then we are talking about what? Oxymoron. And so curse, bless. Curse, bless me now with your fierce tears. And so there is direct comparison between these two words. Curse, and there is direct usage of the word to curse and the word to bless. And anytime you see them together, then we are talking about what? Say it louder. Let mommy hear you. Oxymoron. All right. And so what is the assignment for today? Go back and read A Caged Bird by Maya Angelou. That is the next poem that we're going to look at. A Caged Bird by who? Maya Angelou. As usual, I've ended the lesson, but I'll leave you with Jimenez lines. And what are Jimenez lines for today? The sun sleeps after it frowns. Shine till the night comes. The sun sleeps after it frowns. Shine till the night comes. So just like how the poet is begging the father, pleading on the father not to die. We will all die someday. But as the sun shines now, you have to shine, my students. You have to shine, my teachers, and make the best out of yourselves. So till we meet again, as we meet with Jima Larbi here on Senior High School. Bye-bye and stay blessed.
Subscribe to our YouTube channel, Joy Learning TV.